Good morning, student. Welcome to the third lecture of unit number 5. In the last lecture, we had discussed about what is an Android intent filter and Android activity lifecycle. Now, today's lecture is entirely focusing on broadcast receiver. So, first of all, I want to ask you one question that what is a broadcast receiver? So, if I go through the traditional definition, like I'm speaking and many of you are listening over here, right, as you will be doing, so that is a broadcast. Now what happens in a similar way, we are having a broadcast receiver in Android operating system also. So if you remember, or if you notice that when your phone battery is low, then some applications in mobile phone automatically turn off, they automatically stop working. So that time you will not be able to adjust your screen brightness. Also, you were not able to turn on your Gmail synchronization as it is automatically stop working to save your battery. So how it actually happens? Because Android has some by default broadcast receiver that are created, like for example, if I say that phone has restarted, then when battery is low, then incoming calls, receiving SMS. So all these are the broadcast receiver examples. So we can encounter number of applications in our broadcast receiver. So if I tell you another example, if you have installed anticipation in your phone, so how does anticipation work? It simply works on the concept of broadcast receiver. So whenever the phone has restarted, it tries and fetches the same number of constants that there is in your recent call history, and if that number is same as there is in the phone previously, then fine. But if happens that phone number has changed, then based on the broadcast receiver, your phone will be restarted or rebooted. So we fetch same number and we start and continue and check that it is a change, and on change you perform a particular action in your mobile phone. So how does broadcast receiver works? We define broadcast receiver in our manifest file, that is Android manifest.xml. How you find your manifest file? First you have to open your app and then Java folder, and inside the Java folder there is your Android underscore manifest.xml file, and we take action that what has to be done in case this broadcast occurs. Then another example, if you would have used that Book My Show app, that app tries to fetch OTP automatically. Like Book My Show app, there are some online banking websites, there are some shopping websites, online food websites that tries to fetch OTP automatically. So on SMS received, it fetches a broadcast receiver, and that receiver tries to fetch the SMS. So if that SMS is OTP, it automatically shows in your application. It means that you don't need to manually enter it, or you don't need to copy or paste that OTP in your application, because that OTP is automatically read by that particular application because of broadcast receiver. So all these things basically work on the broadcast receiver. Uh, so let's see what a broadcast receiver actually is. So a broadcast receiver simply respond to broadcast messages from other applications or from the system itself. These messages are sometimes called events or intents. For example, applications can also initiate broadcast to let other applications know that some data has been downloaded to the device. For example, you are downloading some music. That time your status of downloading is also shown by some broadcast receivers and is available for them to use. So this is a broadcast receiver who will intercept this communication and will initiate appropriate action. So basically, there are two important steps to make broadcast receiver for the system. First one is creating the broadcast receiver, and second one is registering broadcast receiver. So these two steps we will see in detail. But before that, let's see how do we how does broadcast receiver starts. For that, first you have to make a Java file. So broadcast receiver is implemented as a subclass of broadcast receiver class and overriding the onReceive method, where each message is received as an intent object parameter. So first you have to make a Java file. So here I make a Java file named as my receiver. This is my Java file, and this Java file should extend the broadcast receiver class which is provided by Android. On doing this, it will automatically ask us to override the existing functionality that this is on receive method. So now what happens is whenever this receiver get activated, the on receive method is executed, and here I am just showing a toast. This is a toast, but you can also actually say like some applications fetch SMS and checks for the OTP. You can neglect the phone call, and if you have like if you want to build up incoming call blocker, how we do that? You check here that on receive call. You check here on receive call. You come here and your flow comes to the on receive method. So here you automatically disconnect the call. Now how does the flow comes here? That change is done in the manifest file. So in manifest file, we are having a receiver tag. As we discussed already, that is my receiver. We are having a receiver tag. We name this receiver whatever the name has been given over here. That means in creating broadcast receiver, the name given to my receiver is my receiver. So it's my receiver. Now when will this broadcast be fired is defined in the intent filter class. So whenever this broadcast be fired is defined in the intent filter class. So we have action which defines that android.intent.action.boot completed. It means the phone has been completely booted. Simply fire up the my receiver class. Simply fire up the my receiver class, the my receiver, and here we will be firing up the my receiver method. So if we go by this definition, we simply get a toast. Toast has been detected whenever the phone has been completely booted up. So how does it work? It is a Android system and it's a broadcast receiver. This is an Android system and this is a broadcast receiver. So it registers basically for the system to observe something, and if intent has occurred, the system notifies broadcast receiver that these things have occurred up, and it helps you to detect a particular system or the particular step and perform my action based on that state. If you are building a call blocker, simply you having a predefined list of intents, intent filters over here, you pass that I think intents are incoming calls, and if it's true, you coming the on receive, and you check call come from which number, and you are having a database. If the number is in your database, and if that number matches, you cancel the call, and users are able to have automatically call blocker applicable on his phone. So that's how the broadcast receiver works, and we can even create our own broadcast receiver intents. So this is about the two main important steps of the broadcast receiver. That means first one is the creating broadcast receiver, and after that registering broadcast receiver. And both these steps are implemented in your Android underscore manifest.xml file. After that, the another topic is content provider. So we have seen content provider in Android architecture in the unit number 2. And now in this unit, we have to see in detail how actually content provider works. So first of all, what is a content provider? So basically, content provider is a component that interacts with a repository, and it supplies data from one application to others on request. So what is the working of content provider? It supplies data from one application to others on request. So such requests are handled by the methods of the content resolver class. So content provider is a component that interacts with the repository. It supplies data from one application to other application, but on request, and such requests are handled by the method. Which method? Content resolver method. So the app does not need to know where or how the data is stored, formatted, or accessed. This is the working of content provider. So what are the characteristics of content provider? First, it separates data from the app interface code. It provides a standard way of accessing the data. Content provider makes it possible for applications to share data with other apps. And content provider is agnostic to the repository, which could be a database, which could be a file system, or the cloud. So this is your content provider in Android operating system. So content providers are good. Content providers are useful for apps that want to make data available to other apps. And with the help of content provider, you can allow multiple other apps to securely access, to use, and to modify a single data source that your application provides. So this is the diagram. Content providers works with three layers. First one is the data layer, data access layer, and third one is the business layer. So data layer contains internet, SQLite, which is a database, and your file system. Data access layer, there is a content provider, and at the business layer, there is your applications. So between the applications and the that means between the business layer and data layer, there is your content provider. So let's see one of the example of content provider. For example, warehouse inventory. So warehouse inventory for retail stores, game scores, or a collection of physics problem for colleges. For access control, you can specify levels of permission for your content provider, specifying how other apps can access the data. For example, stores may not be allowed to change the warehouse inventory data. That means warehouse tries to maintain the integrity of their data. You can store data independently from the app because content provider sits between your user interface and your stored data. Content provider sits between user interface and stored data. So you can change how the data is stored without needing to change the user facing code. For example, you can build a prototype of your shopping apps by using mock inventory data. Then later on replace it with an SQL database for the real data. And you could even store some of your data in the cloud and some locally, and it will be all the same to your users. Another benefit of separating data from the user interface with a content provider is that development teams can work independently on the user interface and data repository of your app. For larger complex apps, it is very common that user interface and the data backend are developed by different teams, and they can even be separate apps. That is, it is not required that app with the content provider have a user interface. For example, your inventory app could consist only of the data and the content provider. And there are other classes also that expect to interact with a content provider. For example, you must have a content provider to use a loader such as cursor loader to load data in the background. So if your app is the only one using the data and you are developing all of it by yourself, you probably don't need content provider. So basically what is content provider? Content providers lets you centralize content in one place and have many different applications access it as needed. Content providers behave very much like a database where you can query it, edit its contents, as well as add or delete contents by using insert method, update method, delete, and query method. So it is just like your database. In most cases, this data is stored in an SQLite database because SQLite database is very compatible with the Android operating system. A content provider is implemented as a subclass of content provider class and must implement a standard set of APIs that enable other applications to perform transactions. After that, content URI. So to query a content provider, you specify the query string in the form of URI, which has the format like prefix, colon, authority, data type, and ID. So first see what is prefix. Prefix is always set to content. So it is the name of the content provider. For example, contacts, browser, etc. Then data type. The second one is the authority. This specifies the name of the content provider. For example, prefix always set to content and authority specifies the name of the content provider like contacts, browsers, etc. For third-party content providers, this could be the fully qualified names such as, for example, .com tutorials point .status provider or like some other websites which is shown in your browser. Then next one is the data type. This indicates the type of data that this particular provider provides. For example, if you are getting all the contacts from the contact content provider, then the data part will be people and URL will look like content colon contact slash people. So it means that it specifies the type of data that this particular provider provides. And the last one is the ID. This specifies the record requested. For example, if you are looking for contact, if you are looking for contact number 5 in the contact content provider, then URL will would look like this content colon contact/people/5. That means prefix set to content. Authority provides the name of content provider like contacts. Then data type provides the data that this particular provider provides, like contacts of people, and the ID provides a specific record requested like contact number 5. Then let's see how to create content provider. So creating content provider involves number of simple steps to create your own content provider. Like first one is, all of you need to create a content provider class that extends the content provider base class, because content provider is a subclass of content provider base class. Second, you need to define your content provider URI address, which will be used to access the content. Next, you will need to create your own database to keep the content. Usually, Android uses SQLite database, and framework needs to override onCreate method, which will use SQLite open helper method to create or open the provider's database. So when your application is launched, the onCreate handler of each of its content provider is called on the main application thread. Now in the last lecture, that means in the Android activity lifecycle, we have seen what is onCreate method, what is onPause method, and onResume method likewise. Then the next, you will have to implement content provider queries to perform different database specific operations. And finally, you have to register your content provider in your activity file using provider tag. So here is the list of methods which you will need to override content provider class. Like first one is the content URI. After that, you need a insert method, update method, delete method, and query method. So let's see one by one. First one is the onCreate method. So now we know that what is onCreate method. onCreate method is called when the provider is started. Likewise, onCreate method is called when application is launched. Then second one is the query method. So this method receives a request from a client. The result is returned as a cursor object. The insert method used to insert a new record into the content provider. Delete method deletes an existing record from the content provider. And the update method updates an existing record from the content provider. Likewise, your database queries. And last one is the get type method. And this method returns the MIME type of the data at the given URI. MIME type means the multimedia type. So this is about your content provider. So in the today's lecture, we have discussed about, first of all, what is broadcast receiver life cycle. So there are two main important steps for making broadcast receiver. First one is the creating broadcast receiver, where you have to make your Java class. Like here I have created my receiver class, and after that it will override on receive method. After that, registering broadcast receiver, here you have to register your broadcast receiver that you have created over here, that is my receiver. Then the content provider lies between the data layer and business layer. That means it lies between your data provider and the data where your data is stored. After that, content URIs, where we have discussed what is prefix, what is authority, data type, and ID. And after that, the 5 important steps for creating content provider and a list of methods that you need to override a content provider class, like content URI, insert, update, delete, and query method.